And I hear some stair wheel movement.
That's a heavy ghost if it's a ghost.
At full speed.
How you doing?
Hi, Joe. Or Joe has a packet.
Mr. J, do you have this document that says Town of Alton zoning ordinance? That's, you have that one as well?
No, it must be in here though.
Okay, yeah, it should be one on the
Oh,
table.
yes,
Okay,
now I do.
all right. Doug, you're vice chair? Are you vice chair?
Me?
Yeah.
Again?
Did
No,
you-
I just stepped down from the chair. I think Paul, I nominate Paul.
No, but I think, didn't we vote on a vice chair?
So Tom Divney is chair.
Chair, right.
Did we vote on a vice chair?
I don't know
Yes.
that we did.
We did,
We did.
We did?
yeah.
But very well.
All right, 'cause how are you? Right?
Chair in your position. Doug will continue as chair.
Somehow I think you're
No, that,
reading between the lines.
Meeting.
he did the first meeting. He
Yeah, that-
continued
Yeah,
as chair for the
Right,
first meeting.
exactly.
And then second meeting, we voted.
Right.
I'm sure I would have remembered if I was to
If
be
you
the
would
vice
become
chair.
the second
Yeah.
in command. Huh. I don't have any notes on it either. I mean, it would be good just to stay consistent with whatever was voted on, but if we don't know, we have to do, but.
Yeah, so I'm see if Jessica actually.
Right,
has
I
it.
only have the fact that we voted, that you
For-
guys
for the
voted
chair.
on a chair and a vice chair, and unfortunately, I didn't write that down.
Who the vice chair was? Who?
Tom chair, Doug co-chair.
Yep.
Ah,
You're on.
All right, well then let me call this meeting to order at 6:10 PM. And we have an agenda and I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
Aye. Okay. Maybe we should just do an, identity. Doug Brown, acting chair.
Paul Manzioni, member.
Joe Mankus,
Member.
member.
Dick Shea, Board of Selectmen, alternate representative.
Perfect. Okay. Other business. Jesse, you want to kick us off on new business?
sure. Okay, so planning board proposed amendment number 1. The committee had moved that to the planning board at the last meeting. The same with, proposed amendment number 2. That has also been moved on to the planning board. So that brings us to, proposed amendment number 3. So this was discussed at the last committee meeting. I did add the language for both attached and detached. So we're on page 3. I did add language to number 7, and I created a new number 8. So those are the only 2 new additions since the last discussion. Everything else stayed the same.
I guess the only question I had is 7D, do we need a statement that says a dwelling unit, in no case shall a town of Alton require that an accessory dwelling unit be less than 750?
So that's already existing language.
Existing, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, in section 1, I did add the new definition for accessory dwelling unit. That came directly from the state.
That's state language, right?
Yes, yeah, so we discussed that last time as well, so I crossed that off and added that in.
That number one, accessory dwelling unit, where we say, talks about sleeping, eating, cooking, sanitation, and on the same parcel of land as the principal dwelling unit. Do you really need to say same parcel of land? Obviously, if it was a different parcel, none of this would apply.
Right, it's, so that's the definition that came from the state.
And we pay those
So-
guys.
Yeah, so that's, right, I know it seems sort of redundant, but
It's certainly not going to cause any confusion.
right, that's pretty crystal clear.
Is this, in section 4, where it says an accessory dwelling unit shall not be permitted on any lot with more than one existing dwelling unit? Is that consistent with the state stuff, or is that what we've had? I'm just wondering whether that, because that's a restriction, right? So I wonder if the state says you could put an accessory dwelling unit on any lot, even if there's more than one dwelling unit, is that a restriction that,
That's, I'm not sure if the state has that same language. I didn't see that in anything that they had provided,
okay,
with the new changes.
but I'm wondering if they have the opposite, so that, in other words, they say it can be on any lot, even if the lot has more than one dwelling. I'm just, like, that's a restriction that we're making in ours. We're saying you can't have an ADU if there's already, let me see, that in any lot with more than one existing dwelling unit.
Right.
Which is good.
Yep,
But I'm just wondering whether that goes contrary to the provision in the state. And I just don't have the two here to make that
right.
comparison.
Not that I'm aware of. I didn't see anything to where the state allowed, multiple.
An ADU,
Right.
even if there's like 2 apartment buildings or 2 dwelling units and they want to put an ADU.
Correct.
So, yeah, so it just.
Yeah, I didn't see any of that language.
Right. The D one, in no case shall the town of Alton require that the accessory dwelling unit be less than 7. Oh, I see why it's worded that way, because they're restricted to a percentage of existing square footage or whatever. And if their current square footage, and you restricted them to that percentage, resulted in them having to do something less than 750 square feet, they would still be able to go up to 750 square feet.
Correct, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I think that's what they're
Right,
saying.
because that,
And
right, if they had a smaller house, then
Right.
that percentage would be way less than 750.
then 750, then, you say, oh geez, if we're following the percentage rule, you can only have a 500 square foot dwelling unit, knock yourself out, go do it. But here we're saying, no matter what, they get to have at least 750.
Yep,
And the only other question I'd have on that is that also consistent? See, it's hard now, because unless you're looking at the state statute carefully in front of you and comparing every provision, we did do that more carefully at prior meetings, and I know you've looked over both things. And this D is something that predates the state's revision, right? This is a carryover from our
right, it's
old
existing.
ordinance.
Correct. Yep,
Right, so the carryovers are the ones that we have to be concerned about, that they stay consistent with the new
Correct.
state
Yep.
language, yeah.
And then the same one in D, do we have to say town of Alton require, or is just our regulations require?
Kind of obvious it's our zoning.
right. I mean, this would be the time to modify that if you felt the need to.
What's that? I didn't hear that, Dick.
Oh, no, I just, it's one of the few requirements in here where we say the town of Alton requires. Actually, the whole regulation is all town of Alton requirements. So
Right.
I don't even think we need to
Just
say that, but
Or
again,
just strike the town of Alton.
Say, in no case shall the accessory dwelling unit be less than 750 square feet.
Oh, I see, you're talking about in the D section. In okay, shall the town of Alton require. Well, I think the only benefit perhaps to relieving the town of Alton stuff in is because it does, if nothing else, it does highlight that that's separate and different from the state.
Right, like that's a town requirement,
That's
not
a
a state
town requirement.
requirement.
So in other words, somebody looking at this and relying on it or trying to challenge it or whatever would know that they don't have, the state law isn't on their side or against them. This is strictly the town. I mean, it may have some usefulness,
okay.
given that we're squaring the two things with the state.
Well, it's only 4 or 5 words. We can afford that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it. And 8 is consistent with what state language was?
Yes, so that was the definition, so part of this is the definition of detached. And then I included the discussion to where we talked about it not exceeding a maximum of 950 square feet.
Right.
So that differentiates that a detached unit can't exceed 950 square feet. Regardless of what our previous few statements say about the percentages.
Right, because
I'm
that
just
has to do
pausing
with
with
attached.
These are all
Yep.
with the
Right. Yeah, all those requirements, yeah.
And it gets a little wordy about unit that is neither within nor physically connected to the principal dwelling unit. I mean, once we say detached, but that's because that was the state's language. And so by using that, we're making it clear, we're staying within their restrictions and we're limiting it to 950, which the state statute does, or permits.
And when you get to number 10, that requirement where there are 2 off-street parking spaces for primary family dwelling and an accessory dwelling unit, that leads someone to think that I need 2 for each, or should we say there are no parking spaces required for an accessory dwelling unit?
Right, so there's a new law regarding the towns cannot put restrictions, cannot require more than 1 parking space per dwelling unit, per dwelling. So this is only going to require 1 spot for the main house and then 1 spot for the ADU.
Oh, okay, so even the main, an individual residence without an ADU only has to have 1 spot.
Right? Yeah,
Okay.
right?
The snowplow guys aren't gonna like that.
Yeah. So that's why that's changed to
I
2
got you.
from 4.
So the state law applies not just to ADUs, where it says you can't.
Yeah, on the, parking. Okay, let's see, right here. So let's see, this stems from, Senate Bill 284. Prohibits municipal zoning ordinances from requiring more than 1 residential parking space per unit.
It's clear enough.
Yep,
So
City dwellers.
yeah,
the
so,
only property provided. So they provide a minimum. So that's the restriction there.
Yep.
You're making them, the only thing you're making them provide is the one per unit.
Yeah,
Okay, so, and the way
Yep.
that's worded is shall provide a minimum. So that makes them provide one. So 2 off-street parking spaces for the primary single-family dwelling and an accessory dwelling unit. It's a tad bit ambiguous as to whether 2 is required for each of those.
okay.
So I wonder if we would say 2 off-street parking spaces, comma, 1 for the primary single-family dwelling and 1
Okay.
for the accessory, just to,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Just to
Yeah,
make it,
kind of spells it out.
yeah.
That is much clearer.
That way, there's no interpretation that I need 2 for each of those.
Correct.
I need a total of 4,
Yep,
Well, maybe that's what they were getting at when they had 4 originally,
right?
2 for each. We canceled that, so now you got, yeah, okay.
right.
Okay.
So this is a lot clearer. I like it.
So can you read what the language will be then?
The owner of the property shall provide a minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces, comma, 1 for the primary single-family dwelling and 1 for the accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, it's good.
Now it's crystal clear. All right. And everything else is already existing.
Yeah.
Just renumbered them.
So are there any other points of discussion on amendment number 3, is that?
Again, Jesse, the language that already existed has been reviewed compared to the requirement of the state statute, and all
Yes.
that's fine. The ones that needed to be changed are the ones that we've been working on these last
Yep,
few
it's either
meetings.
crossed off or in red.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
In number 11, the way I read that, as long as you have an existing septic system that is functioning, even though it may be woefully inadequate for the additional ADU, you're not required to do anything about it, other than have a design available.
Correct.
That's a DES law, pretty much.
Hard to believe, but.
Viewing.
Yes,
The rest of the stuff we're good with.
right. And mine, it's in my phone. I think I have it in red. Oh, yeah. Get on the same page with you guys, and we just, it's up to date here. Page 11.
It's the one that you got through the email? Oh, this is the last one.
No, this is, yeah, that's what I got put in here. Okay, but this is, I printed from the email. So that's why it's not in red. I'm sorry, a little sideline.
And in 15, Jesse, I always get confused about what manufacturing housing is, but my impression was that that was just a stick-built house that's stick-built off-site and brought to the site. Is that the case?
So that would
or-
be considered a modular home, what you
Modular,
just
okay.
described? So a
this
manufactured
is-
home is like mobile
You
home?
roll in there and plunk it down. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay.
They all have different regulations. All these different types of homes.
Well, I think we beat that one up pretty well.
So someone want to make a motion to move this to the planning board?
The only other change before we do that is that in Article 400, Section 401, which is the table of uses.
Yep.
We're altering that. It takes the Lakeshore Residential Zone, which would have required a special exception for an accessory dwelling unit, and now making it permitted.
Right,
So they don't have to come, if they're in the Lakeshore Residential Zone, they can have an accessory dwelling unit as a matter of right.
correct.
Without going to the ZBA.
Right, so the
And that's
revi-
because the new state statute does not allow us to restrict, to prohibit them in any zone.
So the language from that is municipalities may no longer require either a conditional use permit or special exception for an ADU.
Right.
So, yeah, no special exceptions.
But can,
So-
okay, so.
So it doesn't say anything about a lakeshore residential zone, it's just you can't
we
require
can't
special
require special
exceptions.
exception, But does the state statute allow us to prohibit ADUs in any zone?
No, I don't. we
No,
talked
I don't
about-
think so. I think that was the big
Right.
point. That was like the
So,
primary point of
yeah.
that state statute. We can't.
Right. They may be either attached or detached and shall be allowed as a matter of right.
Right. In every zone.
Yep.
Okay, so that change would be needed to take, although we still say no for the RS zone.
Because residential uses aren't allowed in the recreational services zone. So
Right.
this is,
That only pertains to residential. The
Right.
state statute only pertains to residential.
right,
zone.
because, yeah, single-family dwellings and
Right.
multifamily, all that stuff is not allowed in that zone.
Right.
So it could stay as a no.
Thank you.
Yep.
Make a motion?
Yeah, so the motion is that we would move, I would move that the committee present the, recommend to the planning board that, what number is
Amendment number 3.
Yeah, that, yeah, proposed, planning board, amendment, proposed amendment 3, be presented to the planning board for its approval
Have a
or
second?
review.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Jesse, Amendment 4?
Okay. Okay, so Amendment 4, that was moved on to the planning board at the last meeting on October 15th.
Okay, so then we can move on. Number 5. Is this yours?
This would be Norma's, so that, you want to reference that other handout? Norma put that together for you guys.
I brought in the zoning ordinance that was existent before the major changes that were made last year. I tweaked them a little bit to make them a little more the way I like them to be. Made a couple of changes, and the 4th page is our current zoning ordinance is still there. Left our current ones as a last page so that you could compare them if you wanted.
So did you feel that the changes that you'd like to see implemented were better off working with the old ordinance than the one that was adopted in March? It looks like.
There was just a couple of sections that were confusing to me, and maybe you guys can shed light, because lots of times you have a reason why things were changed or why they were stated a certain way.
Right.
And just because they were confusing to me, it doesn't mean they need to be changed necessarily. But I felt the need to have definition of the 3 non-conforming lot structure and use at the beginning. I just stuck those in there. I did find them in the ordinance. And I separated out uses and structures and lots. And then I took what was existing in the 2024 zoning ordinance and put them in the section. The first one is non-conforming uses. So I read through it, and it talked about uses, so I just left it in there. I highlighted the word use because I wanted that to just kind of stand out.
So the yellow highlighting,
The 2 yellow sections, E and F on the second page, are a bit duplicative, and they talk about non-conforming uses that are voluntarily removed. And then they talk about structures. And then you have expansion of structures for non-conforming uses beyond existing elevations. And those are two just, they're a bit confusing to try and work with.
So do you have language you'd prefer to see in there? Have you thought about that?
I left the ones with the yellow there so you could see them if you
Yeah.
wanted to read them and make any note or note what changes. But I did take them out of the non-conforming structures section. I restated at the beginning the continuation, the abandonment, and the change as it related to structures. The uses have, you can continue it, abandon it, or change it. In this situation, structures, it's the same layout. I just changed any lawful use of a structure that existed prior to the date may continue. Abandonment, I left the same wording. And so I left the continuation, abandonment, and structure, change of the structure at the beginning. And then I left the remaining sections from 2024 pretty much intact.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question about the abandonment, D1? It talks about non-conforming use has been discontinued for 18 months with no proven intent. And what constitutes proven intent?
Where are we?
Does the owner have to file something?
Page
or-
6,
No,
D1.
Dick, that's always been, or at least it's been in our zoning for many, many years.
Those are the words that have been there,
Yeah,
right?
those words have been there,
Well-
and,
Can I
Proof-
just, I'm sorry, can I
Yeah.
interrupt you for 1 second?
yes,
What document, so what document are you looking at? What are we looking at?
Draft
I think
document, page 6, D.
So you're looking at the one that I prepared or the one that Norma prepared?
The one that you prepared.
Which
You're
one are we
looking-
working from?
That's the one you're looking at.
Yeah, I just
want to know what I'm
wondered,
looking at.
You know, can the guy say, well, I mentioned to the fireman that the place burned down, I think I'll rebuild it. There's all the proven intent I need, or,
right, it's,
you know, it's,
it's kind of a case-by-case basis, so if somebody had something and it was abandoned, and then they came into the town and said, oh, I want to redo that, and the code enforcement officer saw that it's been abandoned for more than 18 months, then it would be incumbent upon that applicant to prove to the satisfaction of the board that there was an intent to continue, and that could be proven in many ways.
too many ways.
Well, too many, but, you know, if somebody, for example, had gone and obtained a building permit that they just haven't acted on yet, that's good evidence.
very clear, sure,
That's good,
yeah.
clear evidence. If somebody, you know, brought in 5 witnesses and said, oh, no, Bob has been trying to work on that for all these years, he's always said he wanted that, it was just a matter of time and money and so forth. So rather than try to define what evidence is, it would be open, as you would present evidence in anything you have a burden of proving, and see if the board, you know, goes for it or not, you know. There are some things that'll be obvious, and then some will be more difficult, but,
Yes, yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree, and some could be completely staged.
Well, that's true too, like all evidence.
Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah.
just wondered about that.
But I'm just confused on what document is Jesse's and what document is the stuff we got tonight.
This is Norma's.
Right, the one with August 29, 1970.
I just want to make sure I'm just writing notes on one document. so
Well,
I-
you know, the part of-
Updating something, I'm updating the right
Yeah,
one.
no, right.
That's all.
I know, and it's good that we're
Yeah.
all in the
Two
same,
seem to kind of bounce around.
we're all singing from the same book here, but,
Yeah, in your draft of our agenda for tonight is the current zoning ordinance.
Right.
So I guess I would like some input on the second page where there is yellow highlights of what those two sections might mean. They seem a bit overlapping of, I think we have a definition of in kind now. It's gonna be pulled in if we're using in-kind replacement on here. Or maybe we could do without those two sections altogether.
Specific E and F?
Right. Because when you move down through the section of structures, after you have told them about continuation, abandonment, and changing of it, then you have destruction by fire or natural disaster, and then you have expansion of a non-conforming structure with some regulations. Then we have another one that says repairs. And then there's another section that's called replacement of non-conforming structures that are voluntarily removed.
So,
And there's plenty of sections in here.
They're all
There
really
seems to be a few, too many
same thing.
sections. Right, the one that voluntarily removed is where most of the people are gonna fall, because most people are gonna decide on their own, they're gonna tear down the cabin and rebuild one. So then there's a list of what they need to have to get a special exception to voluntarily remove and replace their non-conforming structure.
so if I could just add, so this one here has, this ordinance was adopted August 29, 1970. That document there, and that
would
has the
be on
yellow
front page.
highlight. Okay, so, and if I remember correctly, when I first started on the ZBA, the ordinance was such that if you voluntarily took it down, you lost it. And that's why everybody was leaving up one wall, one board when they tore something down, and everybody realized, that it was kind of a ridiculous thing that someone was doing that. So I forget when it was, but it was several years ago, maybe 10 or more years ago, when ZAC got together and we rewrote that section to recognize that people don't need to leave one wall or one board. If you want to go in there and tear down a dilapidated structure or one that needs improvement or upgrading, then go ahead and do it. And then we set up restrictions under, you had to have a special exception, and then you had to come in and show that you were going to stay within the footprint, but you were permitted to expand the structure up and perhaps even out. I can't remember, I'd have to look at it. But that is the most recent version of this non-conforming ordinance prior to it being changed most recently, which I guess was what, 2024? Is that right? So with the 2024 change, it took away the ability of the applicant to expand it at all, unless, according to the language, they got a variance from the provision of the special exception, which kind of was a legal mumble jumble kind of thing. So that caused me to look at and say, what was wrong with the prior one where they could come in and expand it up or down or whatever that said? And the requirement was, if you're going to do that and you have the ability to make it less non-conforming, so if you're in the lake shore setback and you can move it out, or any of the side or rear setbacks, you would do that. But they could put basements underneath it. Some of them could put a second story on them, provided they met the special exception criteria. And butters were notified, and it couldn't screw up the views of people or whatever. We'd look at all that very carefully. And that seemed to be working well for people that would take these structures and make them better, safer, nicer, more valuable. And then with the change that happened in '24, it left some confusion about, unless you get a variance from the language of the special exception. So my thought on the whole thing was if we just eliminated that language, and I don't know to what extent the 2024 altered the previous one beyond the language about getting a variance from the special exception language. So I think if it makes sense to people that allowing an expansion up or down with those restrictions, if we could come up with language that would allow them to do that without needing a variance, just as part of the special exception process, I think it would be easier for the applicant and for the town.
That would be ideal.
Yeah.
yes. The previous zoning section it had too much in it, and it had too many sections, and it wasn't really clear which section to even start with
Yeah.
when someone wanted to do this.
Gotcha.
So that's why it got shrunk and rewritten.
Yeah.
And we agree that it got shrunk a bit too much.
Well, maybe the shrunk and rewritten part is still good, and we keep that, but we kind of work with the expansion under what circumstance, because after it was shrunk and rewritten, I think it said you can't expand this total square footage. So, you can't rebuild to expand it beyond the total square footage. Maybe that language gets eliminated, and the language of expansion of a non-conforming structure that was in the previous version gets put back in with all the same restrictions. And if you guys have already resolved the part that it was too many sections and so forth with the 2024, that's great. We should, leave that was accomplished in that, and then just tweak it.
Right, I didn't know if I wanted to really look at the comparison between the two, so that
Right.
you could see the long, pretty complex section that it was. And then the trimmed down section does pretty much work well, except it really should have something about the voluntarily removed and the special exception, and then put the criteria in there for that.
Right.
I think that would be good.
Yeah.
So are we suggesting some further rewrite before final consideration?
And you can suggest what you feel we need to do.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw this out there. We don't have time to meet again and rewrite. After tonight, everything's going to town council to review. And then we're meeting again the following Monday to go over any changes that town council may suggest. And I have jury duty on Monday. So I have 3 days next week to update everything from tonight, send it to town council, get it returned so that I can spit it back out the following Monday. So that the following week it goes in front of the planning board. We literally have no time to leave tonight and re-meet again and write a bunch of new stuff. It's tonight. No pressure.
We can look at the page number 3 with number J, which is replacement of non-conforming structures that are voluntarily removed, and make that what we would like it to be, and replace the current section that is very restrictive.
But before we go to page 3, if we look at page 2, expansion of non-conforming structure. So alteration, no non-conforming structure may be enlarged or altered in any way which increases the non-conformity, except as provided for by this ordinance. So that kind of makes sense. You don't want to let them increase the non-conformity, except as provided for in this ordinance. So maybe special exception, expansion of footprint. In cases where an entire structure is non-conforming and all of the non-conforming structure is located within the setbacks,
That doesn't make sense to me.
it doesn't.
There's no buildings that are stuck in the 25 feet by the road, or the 10 feet on the
Right.
side, or the 30 feet by the lake.
Right.
So that's why that's highlighted, because it just doesn't make
Right,
sense.
it doesn't. And I think, within the setbacks to me means, oh, good, you're complying with the setbacks. You're in them. So that would be encroaching the setbacks.
So maybe that section could just be left out. This is still the 2024 zoning ordinance.
I just want to clarify for the record, it's 2025.
Oh, it's 2025.
Yeah,
That's when
just
it
so
took
we don't
effect.
get that confused with something that may or may not exist.
I got you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The structure may should incorporate the addition built to extent feasible into the building area and the lot. See, that makes no sense, because you're saying it's not conforming, you can rebuild it, provided you build it in a way that's conforming. And,
Which is what the other section's gonna do anyway.
yeah, right, so.
So we can probably strike all of these that have yellow around them and look at just the voluntarily removed, rebuilding, and the special exception that goes around that.
Yeah,
Because I think that is really the nugget that needs to be looked at.
right.
Well, you lost me on that. Saying to strike all the highlighted yellow sections?
Those, I brought in the old ordinance.
Right.
So that we could have something to compare it to. But when I read through it, there's a reason why we got rid of it. I can easily see that that was why I got rid of it, but there was still some good words in there. But the one piece that was in the old ordinance that I think we need to revive somehow would be that number J on page 3. That's where all of the cases are that are going to the zoning board because people want to expand their
Right.
non-conforming structures. And it's only a non-conforming structure if it fits the definition and it is in fact in the setbacks. Or it's, you know, a structure that's one of 5 on a lot or
Well,
something
that's right,
unusual.
because every structure in the Christian Conference Center is non-conforming by virtue of one lot has like however gazillion number of dwelling units is in there, so, right, so they can be non-conforming for, so do we have the 2025 version that we're going to try to
So
amend?
the current version is non-conforming structures. You can alter them or you can replace them. And that's where we end up with maybe allowed by special exception if the square footage is not increased. So that is creating the problem that we have.
Right,
So number J on page 3 is the old zoning section that we would fall in all these cases. So we have to decide what wording we want to be in here.
So isn't this whole thing the old?
It is. Didn't mean to
So it's not
confuse
just-
people with
It's not
it.
just this section that's old, this is whole.
Well, I brought the whole non-conforming section in.
So
Not sure why at this
if I
point,
hear,
but-
so you're saying in the proposed amendment for section E, under number 2 replacement, you want language from the old J that should be put in or inserted?
I think that's what we would like to do. We kind of lean on Paul a little bit,
yeah,
because I believe that's where we need to go to make this more workable.
Okay, so just to reiterate what Doug just said, so this one that's in this document that I prepared,
Yep.
you want to, you want to keep the majority of this language except for E?
I think that's
Is
what
that where we're at?
this is what we're.
E number 2, I think,
Yep,
specific.
E number 2.
Okay, so safe to say that I could cross that off. Okay, I just want to,
Because of timing and because of what, you know, it would take to take these home and reread them. We don't have time for that.
Oh,
so you would like to
But we
put
need to pull something
this
from-
language from J
J would become
to
E
stick
number
into
2.
E.
So we can either call it replacement or we can call it replacement of structures voluntarily removed. But either way, there, 90% of the people that come before the zoning for rebuilding are gonna fall into this one that's too restrictive. And this one's more forgiving for a special exception, but there's criteria.
right,
So we need to look at the criteria that we want our zoning owners to say,
but
and then we can come up with a plan.
my only question would be, so we have the current 2025 one.
Yep.
And we have one that's yellow highlighted from 1970. But,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right? But there's one in between. There's one that predated the 25 one that addressed
So that's what this one is with the yellow lines. That's the one prior to
but it-
25.
Okay, so it says this.
So I don't know why, so August 29th, 1970, that's when the zoning ordinance came into
Okay,
fruition on a
this
whole.
isn't, but this version of it is the most recent one prior to the 2025 change.
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
Yes.
So we're using this, no, that's
Okay.
fine.
Yep.
It threw me off a little.
Okay.
So,
And is there any real difference between just plain replacement as opposed to replacement of a non-conforming structure that is voluntarily removed? Wouldn't the requirements end up being the same?
Pretty much.
The only question for you, what structure would it be non-voluntarily removed? Right?
well,
Then it
we,
would fall under natural disaster.
right,
like,
fires,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So you do want to be explicit about voluntarily removed?
I don't really care either way.
I think you end up in the same boat.
Yeah.
You do.
That's kind of, so my sense would be to strike that are voluntarily removed.
or, but we need a substitute description for that. So, I guess just replacement of non-conforming structures,
Yeah,
that's it.
that's it.
Replacement for any reason, fire, disaster, voluntarily.
Right.
Yeah. I think that voluntarily removed thing was because that was the one that was an issue when people come in, they say, I just don't like it, I want to knock it down and build something else. And that put it in a separate category as opposed to my house burned down and now I need to replace it. And, the town would give kind of deference to someone who couldn't help it and they lost their home and would say, oh,
Right.
yeah, you can rebuild it. But if you're going to knock it down yourself and try to put up some monstrosity there, then you're going to be, but I guess we're past that now anyway.
We are,
So-
but through this process, you can limit whatever quote-unquote monstrosity they can build or not build.
Right,
because
it'll
it's
still
definitely
be
put
restricted.
limitations on it.
That's right. We're still preventing that. So I think you guys are right. If we just say replacement of non-conforming structures.
Okay, so E2, the new description of E2 is replacement of non-conforming structures. Okay.
And then we take it off the first line,
Right.
may be permitted, special exception, if approved.
So you want to start off with if a special exception is approved? Okay.
If replacement complies with the following, in addition to the criteria in 520, one-bedroom structures may be increased to two bedrooms, provided the owner obtains New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Subsurface Bureau approval for construction for the increase in demand.
So that could include septic or really any other thing that the DES regulates.
That's primarily the subsurface is the septic bureau.
Right, okay.
Yep. But it's still limiting it to two bedrooms.
Right.
So that's two, okay.
So if I have an existing non-conforming structure with 4 bedrooms and it burns down, I can only build one with 2?
No, because it says structures with
Two or more.
shall not be allowed to increase the number of bedrooms. So if you had 4, you could.
Oh, okay,
You
yep,
could rebuild it with 4, Dick.
gotcha.
So, Norma, you're saying 3 and 4, there is no increase in the non-conforming aspect of the structure. 4, the replacement structure shall not create a new non-conforming aspect to the structure.
So just 3 would do the trick.
Yeah.
Or just 4 would.
Why did 4 get inserted originally?
I wonder if 4 is, it says it better, though. There is no increase in the non-conforming aspect of the structure. The replacement,
are never good.
let me see, the replacement structure shall not create a new conforming. Yeah, I guess 3 is better because suppose somebody just wants to expand the structure but not replace it.
So we're in all accord that strike number 4?
I think we're okay with that.
I think, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't like number 5 because we have defined the building envelope as the exterior of the building, the roof, the walls, the foundation.
Yeah,
As the replacement shall not allowed to expand, shall be allowed to expand
Only
only within the
within-
building envelope. What I really think it is saying is the buildable area.
It's absolutely correct.
we
And,
did.
and the reason for that is because as of right now, we've changed the term building envelope because we changed our definitions just now at a prior meeting. We used to, in the town and on the ZBA, consider the building envelope that part of the lot in which a structure could be built. And you pointed out that the building envelope really should refer to the walls or whatever, the actual inside, interior of the, so yeah, we need to change that word to comply with the new definition. And so,
So if I hear that, then the language should read, the replacement structure shall be allowed to expand only within the buildable area as defined in section 200 of the ordinance?
It is, but at the same time, number 3 says you can't increase it, the nonconformity, which would mean you can't put it in the setbacks. And if you're not expanding it beyond your buildable area, then you're not going into the setback, so it really is kind of the same thing.
So do
You
need
could
it at
essentially
all, I
strike number
guess?
5.
So 3, I mean, 3 covers number 5 then by default,
It
right?
kind of does, yeah.
I say, so we could delete 5.
Delete 5 then.
Yeah, because it was worded kind of funky, and I know what it meant, but it still means you can't go into the setbacks, which is still,
So 3 covers it then.
Right. Okay.
we're gonna use the keep it simple
That's a good
method.
point.
Yep.
Save a lot of ink by the time we're done.
Well, 6, once again, refers to the replacement of a non-conforming structure voluntarily removed, so we delete voluntarily removed, right?
Yep.
Shall be relocated to the extent feasible to reduce the non-conforming aspect of the structure. And incline replacement shall not permit conversion from seated to unused without connection.
Does that require the property owner to relocate the structure if he can reduce the nonconformance? Or as opposed to just allowing him to if he wishes?
I've heard it in conversation, but it's up to the zoning board to actually put it as a condition on their approval of a special exception, which I would have to catch if that's the case at these meetings.
I don't think we want to be in the business of telling the
Yeah,
property
exactly.
owner
I agree with
they
that.
have to relocate.
Right.
Which, I'm sorry.
Number 6.
But there's some
The
situations
replacement
where
of
they
non-conforming
could,
structure
you
shall
know,
be,
ask and see if they would be willing, and then maybe put a condition on
wait a minute, what,
whatever.
what issue are you guys having with it? No,
The
so-
word shall.
Almost dictating to the property owner that they need to relocate the existing replacements.
They do. We do dictate that.
We do.
Yes.
Oh,
Because what we're saying is, let's say somebody has a structure that's in the lakefront setback. You can't be
Right.
closer than 35 feet or whatever it is,
Yep.
okay? And they built that cottage back in 1930 or whatever, and it was right up against the water. Now, it's dilapidated, they want to rebuild it. We look at them and we go, listen, can you move that? You're 20 feet into that lake setback. You got enough land behind you that you can push that building out of the setback? Yes. Then if you're going to take it, you need to relocate it out of the setback.
But using that existing structure?
No, they're gonna, no. But if they're gonna replace it, if they're gonna replace the structure, we make them move it back as part of the construction that they need to the extent that it can be done. We require them to make it, if you can eliminate that nonconformity and you got enough land to move that building back, then you need to go back. And by the way, we never had a problem with it. People saying, I'm gonna put a foundation, we go, listen, can you move that whole thing back 15 feet and get out of the setback? And if they can, a lot of times they can't. They'll say, no, I've got an embankment, I've got, there's things geographically that prohibit them. But if they're able to do it, then one of the requirements we have, if you want to rebuild this thing, you've got to make it less non-conforming, if you're able to.
So if I'm replacing the structure and I have a perfectly usable existing foundation, I got to demolish the foundation and put in a new one.
Well, if you say, I can't,
Afford it?
yeah, I mean, no, it isn't a matter of affording either, but I think if, owing to special circumstances of the land and so forth and the circumstance, then the board can say, okay, then it's not practical
Let you off the hook
for
this
you to,
time.
and we'll let them off. But that requirement says shall be located to the extent feasible.
Okay.
Okay, the language
Feasible is a nice word.
Yeah, the language is right there, so to the extent feasible. So we always explore that. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't even be given the opportunity to say, hey, can you make it conforming or less non-conforming? So that is a good thing. It says to the extent feasible. And if somebody comes in and says, no, I can't
You're killing me.
tear that foundation out and relocate it back and it won't work, then they'd be fine. But,
So we'll keep the language other than voluntarily removed.
yes. But can I ask a question about expansion of structure beyond existing envelope? That would be number 3 on the top of that page. Because we have another definition for envelope now.
Yeah, that's part of the older,
But
this
that's
is
the
the old
Okay.
zoning ordinance that went with.
No,
the-
but I mean, okay, but,
Not using that.
We're not using
Not
it.
number
using that
3.
one.
oh, that's out.
Yep.
Oh,
None of this is
okay.
going-
Oh, none of this, none
J
of
is
that's in
going-
the 25. Oh, right. Well, right, you guys already, okay, thank you.
It's only J that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we gotta roll up our sleeves and stuff. You guys already did that when you did the 25 one.
No, it doesn't.
The current one is, you can't rebuild it any bigger than it was.
Right,
Period.
so that's coming out, and in this version of J that we just edited is gonna go into the 25 on.
She brought this because she was.
So we could work off the language, and then take this language and put it in the
Put
new
it
one,
back into the new one,
right,
yes.
into the proposal.
So
It
that's
was there, it's gone, now we want to put
Correct,
modified, correct.
modified.
So the only thing left is then 7.
Yeah, I don't really like 7. If you're replacing a structure, they're most likely going to make it a year-round
Yeah.
house anyway. I have not met anyone that built another little seasonal cabin that wasn't structured like a new single family. And then if you go to the definition of in-kind, it talks about limiting the footprint and realigning it and keeping the same square footage, so you're gonna end up creating another mess, I think.
So, but what if we just put replacement of a structure shall not include conversion from seasonal use to year-round use without connection to a year-round? So in other words, I think there's a value in requiring I mean, it's almost implied anyway, if you're gonna make it year-round.
It's not a thing that's easily definable when you look at what's here. You can't find easily if it's a seasonal cottage or if it's a year-round. People build year-round homes mostly now anyway.
Right.
They insulate them a little bit. And
So-
they've got water and sewer on all of them anyway.
So the question is, do we really need 7 at all?
That's the question.
I'd say.
I think it would create more of a problem
I
than
think
it's
it
worth.
raises more questions.
Yeah, okay.
I do too.
So that won't
Is there any
carry
real
over into the new.
downside if the person says, I'm using it seasonal, that's all I ever want?
Yep. Some people do that. And if they have seasonal water, they're on this end and they've got
Only took me like.
town
Mid-October,
water.
they start to get thirsty.
I have no idea what
I mean,
we're doing. They're just catching up.
It's also
I think I
partly
do.
part of the
Yeah.
permitting process. Kind of
So-
shakes that out.
Food to go.
I think I've got, so you got, Jesse, do you have the language then? I think we need to insert?
Yes, so I just want to read that into the record. So for section 320, non-conforming uses, structures, and lots, we are amending section E. Section E2, we're going to remove the existing language for replacement, and we're going to insert language from old J as follows. We're renaming it as, it's going to be E2, replacement of non-conforming structures. If a special exception is approved by the Zoning Board of Adjustment, if replacement complies with the following, in addition to the criteria outlined in section 520. And what I would like to do, instead of it being number 1, 2, 3, I'm going to put small letters, just so that within the formatting, it all falls in sync. So number 1 would be small a, 1-bedroom structures may be increased to 2 bedrooms, provided owners obtains NHDES subsurface bureau approval for construction for the increase in demand. 2 will become small b. Structures with 2 or more bedrooms shall not be allowed to increase the number of bedrooms. 3 is small c. There is no increase in the non-conforming aspect of the structure. We're crossing off 4 and 5
Should aspects be plural there?
aspects. Thank you. 6 becomes small d. The replacement of a non-conforming structure shall be relocated to the extent feasible to reduce the non-conforming aspect of the structure, period. That's it.
Good.
Consistent with what I took as a.
Perfect. Love it.
What about your rationale?
So that I hadn't gotten to yet.
Okay.
Um,
Thinking.
We have rational.
Yeah, I hadn't finished it. With the purpose of amending this is to make things clearer.
Clarify replacement of non-conforming structures?
I think it's definitely a better, easier path for the residents.
I wonder if we
The
said,
path was too resistant before and now it's more workable.
right,
It's-
so it clarifies and permits expansion under certain conditions. But I don't know, I don't know.
What sounds good, Tom?
I'm going, this way, to clarify Article 300, Section 320, non-conforming uses, structures, and lots.
Yep.
I mean, that's the primary thing that it accomplishes. I mean,
Yeah.
your prior one did that too.
Right, yeah.
You know, but this also does it, and
I mean, the only other thing you could do is make it more explicit, because what you're really changing is E2.
Right,
Right.
and we're removing some restrictions, right? Is that what,
Yeah.
is that what's,
Well, it was too restrictive the way it was.
Right.
And then no one could meet that restriction.
Right.
So they had to get a variance.
But you,
So
and
now
as far as the
we're giving them a
rationale, you
better
can't put
tool.
that in there, the way, public, they could just keep it short and sweet.
Allows for-
so it clarifies the replacement of non-conforming structures and And I wondered conditions under which they could be expanded, but I guess if you use the word expanded in any of,
Clarifies it, it simplifies it in some way.
right,
All right, so it's being proposed to clarify the replacement of non-conforming structures and what else did you say? I can't write that fast.
no, I didn't know whether we want to include that, but
Or we could just leave it as that.
I think it's,
Yeah.
leave it as that.
Okay, so this amendment is being proposed to clarify the replacement of
I think
non-conforming
it
structure.
clarifies and simplify.
Yes.
Well, I don't know if it simplifies because it was shorter language in the prior document, right?
Yeah, but the prior document said no, and this one says most likely do
All right.
this.
Yeah,
Fine.
okay.
This one says there's no path, and this one says the path is over here.
I give you that.
Okay.
Okay, does someone want to make a motion that we move this to legal review, I guess is the step, right? House counsel?
I'll make that motion as long as I don't have to spell out all stuff.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Brings us to Amendment 7.
Amendment number 6.
Oh, did I miss one? Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
So amendment number 6 is just proposing to remove the references to see the definition. It's only listed in some of the uses. It's either, it doesn't make any sense to just reference these to see the definition when a lot of these uses have a definition.
Seems reasonable.
So,
just-
right,
it's
so
a matter of
basically
just
every
breaking
use has a
it down,
definition. So it makes no sense to say, see the definition unless you put that in every single use.
Right. So I wonder if your rationale is this amendment is being proposed to
Yep.
remove references to see that are unnecessary.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay,
I make a motion, we recommend to the planning board amendment number 6 be moved with the updated rationale and deletion of C definition in Article 200.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moved.
okay.
Number 7?
Okay, so number 7. So number 7 stems from,
Cherry Hill.
right, it's helping clarify some things that became problematic earlier in the year for a particular application that ended up going to court. So section 1, part 1 includes section 452B and section 463B to remove the word with. That actually was a suggestion from town council as well.
Yeah, and I think from the lawyer who was suing the town.
Yes, and I included the word of just because it was missing
Right.
in section 452.
And it makes a lot of sense because with the word with, then you leave it subject to interpretation of how you measure width and.
Exactly.
And it caused a lot of stuff. So now
Yep.
if it's just, each lot shall have a minimum of 200 feet of
Right.
frontage, then you know you can measure the 200 feet and you've met the
Correct.
requirement.
And it's consistent with the way that the town has been operating
all
the whole
time.
time.
For years.
Yes, so we're just removing that with.
And then I don't understand all the references to the
So-
minimum buildable area.
Right, so part two, this was another issue. So I guess their explanation was you couldn't depict a buildable area if you were in the setback. Some of the buildable areas were sort of crossed over that setback line, and they were saying you can't do that. But the town has always looked at, you can have a buildable area that encroaches within a setback.
So did the in-house counsel recommend that language?
Yes.
They did, okay.
Well, not this specific language, so if you're not happy with what this language,
No, I just.
Yep.
so- Okay,
right,
Understand
just,
that
I'm just
again?
saying.
So, you, can you-
So the subdivision plan that they presented,
yeah,
they had, that you had to present a buildable area. So
Right.
it's, whatever, the 75% of the minimum lot area.
yeah,
So say you had this rectangle,
yeah,
part of the rectangle encroached within the setback. So the complaint was, that's not allowed. And so the town is saying, yes, it is. That's how we've always looked at that. So that was their angle.
that's correct.
Yeah, they
Right.
wanted to take the
So,
position.
so the point being is to make it clear in this ordinance that the town allows that buildable area to encroach into a setback when you're creating, these
A lot.
subdivision plans, correct?
So essentially what you'd say is that the setbacks can be included in the calculation of minimum buildable area,
Right,
not that you can build in them.
right,
correct, because
Right.
necessarily maybe in that buildable area, that encroachment into the setback might not be your house, it might be your septic system, it might be your well,
right,
Your driveway.
Do all the time.
which
Right.
you can have within the setback.
right.
Not the house, right? Because you'd have
Right.
to come in and
You gotta-
get,
you
a
gotta get
variance.
Right.
But it could be your septic system, or
You
it
can at
could be
least
your well.
create the lot.
Right. So, but this existing language doesn't specify that, and so that's sort of their angle coming in, saying, but it doesn't say that.
Right,
But
So-
our definition of minimum buildable area is taking the setbacks out. It just seems counterintuitive to what we have already. I'm just
Well-
wondering if we could word it differently.
yeah. I mean, I don't understand the sentence, the minimum buildable area is allowed to be within the required setbacks.
Because the buildable area doesn't include the setbacks. But I think it's.
Yeah, it's
that
not
loop
allowed.
Into this buildable area, continuous upland and slopes. I'm not sure what the argument was. for a
So-
couple of cases.
From Stephen's email, he states, add language to make it clear that the required buildable area should include the necessary setbacks.
So the minimum buildable area should include
Yeah,
the
Yep.
necessary setbacks.
Right. So that means the setbacks are there and the buildable area does not go in the setbacks.
I think it should
My
comply
interpretation of
with
that.
necessary setbacks.
Must include,
Must comply with the,
must comply.
yeah. I mean, you're not saying in this language that it's okay to build in the setback. I mean, that we know, right? So by saying the minimum buildable area is allowed to be within the required setbacks, it's like you're permitting them to build in the setback. And that's not what we're doing, right?
Yeah, that's not the intent here, I don't
Right,
think, but I'm just
right.
wondering if the wording needs to be tweaked.
Right.
To make it say what we want it to say.
Right. And I think the minimum buildable area must conform,
So there are some suggestions from
Yeah.
Attorney Cronin.
okay,
So let's just look at that.
yeah. For this language, John
Yes,
made
He
suggestions.
did provide
Okay,
some
that's good.
suggestions, yes. So it starts off with all lots created after March 2007 must have a minimum buildable area. And so his additional language is inclusive of land within required setbacks.
Well, yeah, inclusive of land
Yep. Within required setbacks.
Yeah, that would work. Make sure I don't say something.
Could
that's
you read that
got
again?
this in the setback.
Right, so.
Yes.
Say that, put a shed in the setback.
All lots created after March 2007 must have a minimum buildable area inclusive of land within required setbacks. And then it continues on, made up of contiguous upland and slopes and all.
I think that accomplishes what we want, which is,
Have a new definition of buildable area, because it's not. in
yeah,
our definition.
make sure it doesn't conflict with
In-
the definition.
The required setbacks.
It says a
I'm
three-dimensional
going to make a copy of this
space
real quick.
which a structure is permitted to be built on a lot that is defined by maximum height regulations and minimum setbacks. So the buildable area includes not building in the setbacks.
That's by
And this
definition of buildable
Seems to say
area.
the opposite, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I'm not
How do we
quite sure.
accomplish the
Yeah,
goal?
but I think Jesse drafted that language. That's why I asked that, the inception. I think the town councils reads different.
Well, John Cronin suggested this language that she's copying now. And he's the lawyer that was suing the town over this,
Correct.
over these issues, or he's some other lawyer suing the town over there, but he was the applicant's lawyer.
And I presume our in-house or town council has seen this. So the language he drafted was in response to this.
If I were writing that, I would write, and this is just taking a stab, it could be totally wrong, must have a minimum buildable area. And I would have a comma, and I would delete inclusive of land, and I would put parentheses around within required setbacks, made up of, because buildable area is within required setbacks, or it's not buildable, right? The buildable area on a lot is the area that doesn't encroach into any of the setbacks. And it's not on wetlands, and it's not whatever else.
It's not these other things. which
Right,
is what
it's not
that
the
says.
grades and all that stuff. So I'm just wondering if all lots created must have a minimum buildable area within required setbacks, which is a bit redundant, which is the only reason I was putting the parentheses around them, to emphasize within required setbacks, or take the parentheses out and just say, and let it be redundant, must have a minimum buildable area within required setbacks. So in other words, that sentence is saying your buildable area must be within the required setbacks, even though buildable area means within required setbacks, but it's not a bad thing to be a bit redundant for the sake of clarity. To say must have a minimum buildable area within required setbacks made up. Because when he says inclusive of land within required setbacks, it's like he's using some other land involved in this when really we're talking about the same thing. So the phrase inclusive of land, I think, misdirects you a little bit. Whereas if we were to just say, must have a minimum buildable area within required, comma, within required setbacks, comma, made up of contiguous. And that talks about the land having to be within the required setbacks, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's two different things. You've got this thing that's talking about wetlands and slopes, which is an impact on the buildable area that's left. But when you take that out and you've got your 75% left, you still don't have the setbacks. You
So
don't get to include the setback
maybe-
areas in that.
Maybe if it just said including, instead of including land,
I mean, I think they're looking at the way how this was calculated on those plans.
right?
They were looking at that, they were looking at the slopes and the wetlands, and they were determining from that the 75% that was left on that lot that was buildable. And then I think the square footages that were calculated that got left didn't incorporate the allowance for setbacks. But I still think
So he's
that,
saying when you do the calculation, you have to include the land within the required setbacks.
yeah, it's
When
two
he says
different things.
inclusive of land within required setbacks, okay, so
So
maybe,
they're saying that calculation of but still you're using the word buildable area there.
I know.
And then we have a definition of it.
I know.
That talks about it not including the setbacks, so then you keep going back and forth.
What did the town council say? Again, he had language?
He provided. So what he wrote was, add language to make it clear that the required buildable area should include the necessary setbacks. That was his
Which is,
comment.
that's consistent with what Cronin is saying.
Yeah.
But it leaves you hanging if you say buildable area means you can build on.
Well,
Right.
it may raise some issues with the definition, right?
But the buildable area means you don't build in the setbacks.
Right.
But
Then
is it true
definition
that
would need
other-
to
other
change.
portions
The
of the
that's where I'm
regulation-
going, it's the definition.
Because if
for
that's how the
buildable
town
area.
if the town has been doing things the way that we're trying to reword, all of these other sections, then the definition needs to change, because that's not what the town is doing then.
Super
Sorry,
safe.
I play one on Pete.
I just think it's I mean, if we change it that way, it's gonna come up as a problem later on in other situations.
Right, it's conflicting.
Fix the problem, but we're gonna create more problems in the future. In
The
my
zoning
opinion.
regulations, various other portions of the regulations keep you from building in the setback, even if implies that you could?
well,
So why does it need to change and state this? Why do we need to make this change?
it's true that other zoning ordinances prohibit you from building in the setbacks, but it's not a good idea to have language in the same zoning that somehow contradicts that. Right, it creates a problem. The other thing about changing the language is that it could end the litigation,
Right?
because once according to Stephen, there's,
Right.
the rule is, the courts will look at it based on, so if this passes in March, and the courts look at it and say, problem solved, they change their ordinance, then the case is over too. That shouldn't be the primary motivation or consideration for us. But it's a side benefit of having that case go away. Plus, it straightens out language to prevent future problems. I'm just trying to understand what this minimum buildable area, do we have a definition of buildable area in our definitions?
So that's one of the newly proposed.
Yeah, that's one of the things we're saying, right?
Definitions.
And buildable area, as defined in what we're proposing, includes the portion of the lot that is within, that complies with all the setbacks, right? So if that definition passes, then when it says must have a minimum buildable area, that word, that phrase buildable area is referring to that portion of the lot that is in conformance with setbacks.
Whoa, 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 the definition of buildable area, though, that we're proposing,
Yeah.
the three-dimensional space within which a structure is permitted to be built on a lot, and that is defined by maximum height regulations and minimum setbacks.
Right. So meaning that, that portion of the lot that you're gonna put your structure has to have space 10 feet from the side boundaries, et cetera, right? So, so what we're saying in that phrase, buildable area, if the definition passes, is that portion of the lot that complies with setbacks, okay? But in case it doesn't pass, we want to have this be a standalone, saying that buildable area, and the way John Cronin put it, inclusive of land within required setbacks. So the inclusive of land is referring to buildable area, right? That modifies that. He's saying buildable area inclusive of land within required setbacks. He's just, it becomes a bit redundant, but it's for clarity purposes.
He's saying, he's using our definition, and he's saying that it includes the land within the setbacks, and our definition says it, define however that says it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So when he says inclusive of land within required setbacks, he's saying in it, oh,
He's saying it's all of it.
he's saying it's all of it, he's not saying buildable area. So,
Right,
He's
it's
using the term-
conflicting.
He's using the term buildable area, which is gonna kick in our definition, unless you
Oh,
wanna get rid of the
and so
definition
the whole
altogether.
purpose of this is, yeah, well, we gotta take,
And so, because that's how the town has been doing things, that's what the planning board,
right, but
Ruled on.
once we get this new definition, that screws up the language in each of these. It becomes contradictory.
yes,
So
and we're trying to clear it
so-
up.
Right, so we need another term, okay, and,
I mean, it's every building permit, new houses and where they can put them, and if somebody's a foot over the setback, then the neighbors always let me know that someone's cupola is a foot into the setback and they want me. So people are pretty touchy about their setbacks.
why can't we just eliminate the word buildable? Must have a minimum area inclusive of land within required setbacks, made up of contiguous upland and slopes no greater than all lots created, right?
So
Because
there's
we're
even-
not, if I understand this correctly, we're in these provisions, we're not trying to restrict the land being defined in these provisions as that land that is the buildable area of the land by our definition. We're saying you can create a lot inclusive of setbacks, land, inclusive of land within setbacks. I think we just take the word buildable.
I think that kind of solves that
I think
issue.
it
Yep.
solves
The
the
only thing I'm
problem.
thinking is, but if I come in, what's the minimum area? I asked that question. How do you define?
What are you gonna do in that minimum area?
What's gonna happen is the town is gonna allow somebody to create a subdivision and create lots that right now, you could create a lot that's not a buildable lot. And you can still have a subdivision and create a lot
Yeah.
and sell it to somebody and say, this is not a buildable lot right now. Because all of the space is, part of it's in the setbacks. And you're not gonna be, but you can go to the ZBA and get a variance, and you can put a house up. So we're, as opposed to,
Well, it gets us out of the dilemma here with the definition.
I
agree
think
with
it,
that.
just by eliminating the word buildable.
You're on the right track.
Yeah.
Because when you want to build, you need 200 feet of frontage and 2 acres.
Right,
And then if you have 2 acres, then at least 75% of it have to be without slopes and wetlands.
Right.
Which leaves you
So
the
that could be
rest.
the minimum area, is
Yeah.
that what we're saying?
And when you go to build, then, yeah, you gotta stay out of the setbacks, but there
Right.
should be a way to separate that out.
right.
Because this is just calculating the size of the lot,
The
which would be the
entire lot,
required.
including
Right.
including the land that's in the setbacks. So I think
I
for
mean,
purpose,
that's where he's trying to go with that. But I
Right.
think buildable area is the thing that's
it
hooking it.
is the
into-
thing that's messing up.
It's
But if we
creating a
take the
problem.
word buildable,
it's
right,
set-
this must have a minimum area because we're including
Yep.
the
It's in
entire
that
lot in this reference. So I think the word buildable comes out of all of these.
Good
right?
solution.
I knew he was here for.
Yeah. Okay, Rex.
What we would pay after that one.
2 times 0.
Okay.
Still not building. Far from that.
So we do have setback requirements that I was thinking of in here. It's the building and the structures that can't be put there.
Right. You could, because you can still put septic
Right,
and a
which is
well.
what the setbacks say, it
Yep.
says, oh yeah, except for your wells and your septics and all
Right.
that, then you can put
Yep.
those there. So if we have that, for me to use to keep houses and structures out of the setbacks.
So it-
Right,
So whether you want to keep buildable area as a definition or not, we added it this year. So we could
no, I think it's
potentially,
important to have buildable area, because we've been calling it buildable envelope for all these years, referring to that same thing that you're now calling buildable area. And yours is more consistent with
Yep.
what, you know, the terms that are used in this industry or in this setting.
so the red addition.
I think
to
that
the
Yeah, we're
comes
just gonna
out.
cross that off.
We're also, just leave that,
I
or are you
think,
gonna just take
I
the
think
word?
that should come
Oh,
out.
yeah, we're taking that out.
Just gonna say the minimum area, which is the minimum lot area for all of the other lots by our definition.
So the language will be the minimum area is allowed to be within the required setbacks.
No.
No, that's not it.
Okay, so let me, for the record, all right, so all of these sections will have the same language. So it's section 412, section 433, section 443, section 452, and section 463 will read as follows. All lots created after March 2007 must have a minimum area inclusive of land within the required setbacks, made up of contiguous upland and slopes, not greater than 25% grade, of no less than 75% of the minimum lot requirement for the zone, period.
That's our best shot.
I think that's right.
All right.
Can I have a motion?
And just the, you, okay with the rationale?
Yes.
Is
I
that,
think
is
it's
that,
fine.
that's, okay. Okay.
You came up with this, make a motion?
I would move that we present proposed amendment, what number is this?
7.
7, to the planning board and our council for review.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Any public input? Seeing as how there's no public, we can move on. Any further discussion?
I did not have any further discussion.
Dates for future meetings? Next meeting, November 10th?
Yes, so after, tonight, so I'm hoping that I, don't end up on jury duty. Try to be really.
Hoping you do.
Oh,
Just
no,
give
no,
them the right answers.
no, I'm hoping that I don't, no. So if I don't have to, then Monday I will be back here, after court, and I'll get right on top of this and send it right off to town council. So that way we can, meet on the 10th and, go over anything that he may have comments on.
Okay.
And then we'll be prepared for November 18th to present to the planning board.
So November 10th would, as we've said the last time, is the next scheduled.
The next meeting, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other items? I have a motion for adjournment.
I would move that we adjourn.
Second.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.